Okay, good morning, everyone. We are on the record. Today is Tuesday, the 12th day of July in the year 2022. This is a budget hearing for the Department of Administration and also Human Resources with the Jersey City Municipal Council. We had a scheduled 10 a.m. start. The clock on my cell phone is showing 10:08 a.m. May I have a roll call for the commencement of this budget hearing? I'm just going to call out the council members who are present. Councilperson Prinzeri.
Here.
Councilperson Baggiano. Here. And Council President Waterman.
Here.
We have 3 council members in attendance at 10:08 a.m. In addition, at its time of its preparation, the notice of this meeting was similarly disseminated on Friday, July 1st, 2022 at 3:47 p.m. and again on Thursday, July 7th, 2022 at 7:22 p.m. to the Municipal Council, Mayor, Business Administrator, Corporation Council, and the local newspapers, so I can certify as to our total compliance with the Sunshine Law. Council President, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good morning. Welcome to the 2022 budget hearing. We are with the Department of Administration, so we'll turn it over to the director, and we'll follow your presentation. Okay?
Great. Thank you, Council President. Thank you, members of the council, for attending. For matters of time and consideration, I felt it would be best to split this hearing into 2 parts, one being kind of the reorganization of the department, and then the second part being the existing and continuing services that are provided by the office. So, as we know, the council considered and adopted the reorganization 2 months ago, and most impact of that reorganization occurred in my department. And what we did there is we took the professional services out of my department and included them into the new Department of Infrastructure, which we have a budget hearing on later this week. And then what we did is took some of our internal services, mainly our HR function, insurance, and pension programming, and brought it back into the administration. That's kind of where it's been historically, and it just made more sense as we were looking to create a new department of solely professionals that we brought some of our internal mechanisms back inside. So I think it's best that we start with the Division of Human Resources. Okay. We have our Division Director here, Joanne Rosa, and we'll go through the presentation together. Okay. So if we just go through our slides, the second slide here presents the mission. And what we've been trying to do is just continuously expand our vision here. Some of the issues that we did deal with was with obviously the shutdown and then COVID. The department at the time and now the division really had to reshift gears and go from traditional HR back to work from home, which was something new to the city, adopting the technology for that. We also went into a program that we administered where we actually put software onto computers and made sure that people were doing the work that was required of them at home. And that also resulted in different disciplinary measures that we weren't necessarily used to. But now with everyone back, we're fully operational again, and some of the sticking points that we need to get back to this year is some of our cross-training and our training on professional services and also right to know, sexual harassment, all those type of necessities that are state required and also just best practices. So if we move to our second page here, you'll see that there is a slight uptick in our budget. We'll get into detail with Director Rosa, but simply put, something I did when I was the Director of Finance is we created fiscal officers in each department, and it was mandated that they reported back to finance, and that gave leverage over the department directors, that the person that was approving their budgets wasn't necessarily the person that was giving them promotions or raises. So it was a little bit of a conflict there that we dealt with for years. So what we did is initiated fiscal officers that report directly to finance, and they have responsibility as financial officials of the city and not necessarily employees of the department. So we took that same model and we applied it here to HR. So now what we have is HR specialist or generalist, for each department. And instead of working for the department director and determining discipline or anything like that from the director, it goes through HR as an independent source to make sure there's no favoritism, that there's no, there's no issues with inconsistency of, HR takes a look at it solely as an independent source and says, for this infraction, this is the result. It's a better way. We use the finance replica for that. So you'll see here that's the main uptick in employee count, as we'll go through it with Director Rosa. But if you look at the organizational chart, we still have Director Rosa still administering all the day-to-day operations of the human resources functions. And then in there we have our Office of Employee Benefits, Office of Employee Relations, Office of Payroll, and Office of Risk Management. So just a quick overview of those. Benefits would include pensions, health benefits, life insurance. Employee Relations and Strategic Workforce is the day-to-day operations of the city, including FMLA, disciplinary action, onboarding, offboarding, recruitment. Payroll we'll get into. I know we have our hiccups there, but it's pretty self-explanatory. And then risk management kind of oversees our day-to-day risk assessment as we're self-insured within the city, both in our health benefits as well as our operations within our buildings, workers' comp claims. We cover all that internally. So just something brief on that. What we do is we do a year-over-year analysis every year of our health benefits and our insurance related to premiums. And year over year, for probably the last 13 years, it's been cost efficient for us to stay self-insured. One reason being for that is that the state often subsidizes health benefits, and that subsidy is not guaranteed every year. So what they do is they look at that liability of what it would be if it wasn't subsidized, and it would cost us a substantial amount of money. So we stay self-insured. We create a third-party administrator that reviews every single claim to make sure there's no fraudulent activity, that there's no double payments, that type of stuff, as well as our life insurance. So I'll hand this over a little bit to Joanne as we go through each division. But organizational chart starts with the director's office. It's Joanne Rosa, Jimmy Carroll, who's been a great asset to the team, both as a long-serving official of the city and an attorney when I need him outside the building. And then we have some supports there. Jennifer Racola. Good thing Rich's mic isn't on. So we'll go into Office of Health Benefits. I'll let Joanne kind of speak of the specifics here, but the overview is that we promoted Khadijah, who's been an employee with us for a few years now, to oversee all the functions. And then from there, it's split into a few different divisions. So if you want to just go over it, Joanne.
So the Office of Employee Benefits, as he stated, Khadijah McNair is the office manager. We have two senior managers, and one of them was promoted recently into the position. Besides Khadijah, Veronica Marino was a team member of the Office of Risk Management, and now she has transitioned over to oversee the team for pension. We have Lori Disbro, who is our investment specialist. She works with everything related to our Prudential. She is the administrator between the city and Prudential for all the investment that I have done through the 457 plan that we have. We have also, with the administrative team, we have Alma Kadrick, Cami Harris, Lawrence Hunt, Michelle Hankins, Marisol Velez, and Amaryllis Sinchi. All of them are the ones that are managing the daily operations related to everything enrollment, processing and updating all the database in between the state, Horizon, and the city. If we go to the next slide, we have the Office of Employee Relation and Strategic Workforce. The head of that office is Mubin Youssef, who was recently promoted as well into that position. This office is divided into two teams. One team is the administrative team, who is in charge of all the employee transactions, everything related to leaves, anything salary changes, adjustment, correction, and those transactions go directly transition over to payroll, so that way it can be reflected into everybody's paycheck and also update the employee records. The other team, that team is led by Luis Pacheco, and Aguda Roman is the supervisor, and she supervised Maria Corright, Eglo Farley, and Pradesh Masinj. We have our employee relation team, which consists from Kyle McGee, Mohammed, Imtiaz, and Usharani Vecheral. All of them are HR generalists, and they are the ones who supervise the HR specialists that are embedded in each department. And they are the ones who provide the training and supervise and make sure that they do the follow-up of all the disciplinary and that everything that it was transpired in the organizational chart for each department is reflected and is followed through. On the next slide, we can see our Office of Payroll. Currently, we have the Office Director vacancy. We have a Senior Manager, which is Michelle Marino, and under her, she has Denise Claudio, Ebony Stewart, Jay Patel, and Marilyn De Jesus. All these employees are the ones that are making sure that, like, printing the transactions, all the posting that has been submitted from the Office of Workforce Management is included in the system and is reflected in the checks.
Yeah, so I just to supplement there, I think it's important to just be transparent with the council that we acknowledge that there's been some faults within payroll. I think a primary driver there is that we don't have that top individual there. We are currently recruiting for that, and we are looking for somebody that has extensive experience both in understanding the technology of the payroll software, as well as understanding, all the accruals, all the compensation and rights that the employees have, as well as the financing of it. I think that for years we relied on a former employee that was strictly data driven, and it resulted in a lot of inconsistencies with payroll. And when that individual left, there was a lot of unique codes and specific items that was not necessarily transferred to us, and we've been fighting since to try to get that back. We actually even made the steps of potentially offering that individual a small contract to kind of straighten that out. They weren't interested. So we've been working with outside vendors. Another thing that you'll see in the budget is that we've now budgeted for the second year for Unicorn. It's a company, think ADP kind of thing. And once we get this data kind of rolled out, which we're working with, as well as our IT, Bernadette has been really helpful in trying to get this cleaned up. Once we have all the data cleaned up, it'll be transferred over to Unicorn, and it'll be operational through the third party. We'll have pay stubs online, accruals online, W-2s, and we'd still keep some of some staff to make sure that the timesheets are accurate and they're reported correctly. But it'll take a lot of the administrative work out of the city's hands, and we can hold the third party liable if there is any issues. I think right now it's missing that crucial element.
Let me ask you something. You want to ask a question about this?
I know that there was a previous system that had been used for online paycheck stubs and the like, and was that just not successful, or are components of that still in place?
Yeah, so
don't.
Oh, sure. So I'll give you a little history, and Joanne's a little bit more in the day to day. But we worked off of one system for probably 25 years. It's a green and black DOS type of system.
Actually, I'm talking if there was an online system at one point.
Yeah. So then we transferred to what we call One Solution, right? And One Solution didn't necessarily pick up all of the programming and functions that original DOS program had done. I don't know if it's DOS, but it looked like it. It predated me. So really, there was a situation where the new system didn't have all the information, and by the time we implemented, the old system had crashed. So it was really now a balancing act of trying to figure out how to reconcile the new system with the old system. And to be quite frank, the new system that we went to, the One Solution, is not necessarily what we need as a city. There's a lot of inconsistencies. They show us a lot of clients that they have, but a lot of the clients that they have are very 9 to 5, either unionized, not unionized. We have a lot of specifics. We have different work schedules, 4-day work week, 6 different unions, police, fire, and I just don't think they were equipped for it. So we went to this unicorn, and we demoed with some of their other cities. They have larger clients than ours that are much more complex than we are, and they've been working with us to try to mitigate that. So that's probably what we needed 20 years ago, and it looks like we're finally getting there.
Let me ask you something, John.
Sure.
When it comes to the vacancy in payroll, somebody that have an IT background must be able to fulfill this, correct?
Yeah, I think it's just we need somebody with both the IT background, because they're going to have to know how to interact with the new program and the existing program. But I think it's also really important that person understands payroll and benefits from a functioning side, right? Like there's a lot of nuances that I've been working with Jimmy Carroll on, percentages of pensions that are applied to certain employees but not to others. When someone goes from a individual benefit account to a family account, what's the, so I think somebody really has to be versed in that, because what will happen is if they don't know that aspect of it and they're just running the data, you get IRS complications, and that's what we're dealing with as we have that resolution on for this meeting that Peter described, the small contract with the taxes.
Right.
It's for this specifically that, we took a look, and IRS didn't find us, but they came back and said, there may be some inconsistencies here. And to be fair, it was based on volume. So they're not saying that, you got this one guy's wrong. They're saying you may have done this function wrong for all the employees.
Right.
So that's why we got supplemental W-2s. So yeah, it's heavier technology, but also somebody that just understands how you evolve it and land at those formulas.
The reason why I'm asking, because this is a budget hearing, and part of our challenge is to see how we can save.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because everything is going up, and I know the public wants to know what we're really trying to do to cut back. I asked that question because based on the knowledge that you have, I'm listening to, and based on the knowledge that Jimmy have and Rosa have, if we get an IT person for this, then it seems like y'all can groom them to understand the other, eons that will go with this, and what that will do for us. It'll keep us with this salary, and we could just bump that other person up slightly.
I agree.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. And I think, right now what we're working on is trying to fix the accruals, right?
Okay.
So there's a kind of an inside and outside, without getting into the details, right?
Right.
If you take a day off, we know, and we're accounted for that if you didn't have that day, you're not getting paid.
Correct.
Okay? But there's an issue with transforming that data onto a pay stub. Because it goes through this, right? So that's something that Bernadette has been helping us with. And she's also been helping us with transitioning into the new program. And she does know a lot of those nuances. So strategically, from a performance and budget perspective, that may be the option that we're looking to pursue.
Because I'm thinking if Bernadette is helping you with that, then who's Bernadette key person? The reason why I'm saying that, because I know we probably would have to always use her in IT, because
absolutely.
There, but who's her key
so IT is in our budget hearing, but we do have Vivek here as well. Vivek's Bernadette's number 2.
Oh, he's number 2.
He's number 2. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And some of the services that we provide are both internal and external. So
Okay.
the stuff that Bernadette's been helping us with, I'm pretty comfortable that Vivek has the skills
Oh, he
to
does.
do
Okay.
so.
Okay.
And we're going to play it as we go along. And then I'll come back to the council before we make any final
Okay.
decisions.
It's good to know.
Yep.
Thank you.
You got it.
Okay.
So as we continue with the organizational chart, we now have the Office of Risk Management, which is led by Matt Hogan. We have 2 administrative staff. They are helping with the day-to-day of operation, processing the claims, processing everything related to workman's comp, insurance claims.
Yeah, and then for policy perspective, a lot of this is outsourced. We have a third-party administrator. So Matt is our risk manager, so to speak. He oversees the day-to-day, and then he has some support staff here. I think in the future, as support staff retires or moves on to other positions, we'll be able to keep this maybe down to 1 person,
Okay.
and either transfer the individuals to needs,
Gotcha.
or if they decide to end their service, we wouldn't backfill.
Okay.
Yep.
So as we stated before, some of the functions of these offices, we already established that employee benefit administers the city health benefits plan for eligible employees and retirees. Enroll new hires and retirees into health benefit plans and process various medical benefit claims. Manage the city civilian pensions plan, ERS, PRS, DCRP. Process retirement and disability and early retirement application and provide employees with counseling. The Office of Employee Relation and Workforce is responsible for centrally and strategically providing human resources and workforce planning services to around 4,000 employees, oversight the employee relations factor, which is the disciplinary actions, labor grievances, employee mediation, labor negotiations, and coaching. Oversight also that we are in with our EO compliance, also provide the FMLA and ADA compliance as well. We also oversee the civil service compliance, employee background checks, and volunteer and intern oversight. The Office of Risk Management is responsible for the administration of the city self-insurance and general insurance program. Also, they are oversee that we are in compliance with OSHA and all the work safety statutes. And the Office of Payroll is process, verify, and distribute payroll for the city, which includes seasonal, summer seasonals, part-time, full-time employees. In the next slide, we are talking on some key initiatives that the division had this last year. We finally were able to reinstate the in-person EEO training. We launched a CDL training pilot program for employees. We introduced an HR specialist in each department to provide our services within reach. We negotiated and executed union contracts in compliance with updated rules and regulation. We introduced additional training to minimize progressive discipline and to encourage and improve employee morale and performance. And we complete a pay equity study and correct salary disparity based on our study findings.
The CDLs, all the employees can apply for that program? It
Yeah.
doesn't make a
Yes.
difference what division you're in?
It should be work specific, right?
Okay.
So if you're working as a clerk and at a desk, it wouldn't
Right.
necessarily apply. But we do offer it to all of our DPW.
Right, that's
We extend it to MUA
Okay,
and some of our emergency services because they have some larger equipment as well as fire. So a little background there is that we had previously engaged JSEP to help with this. It was a health initiative. I'm sorry, not a health. It was a training initiative that would encourage promotions, because what we do is when somebody does get a CDL, we offer them a $2,500 incentive. So we didn't want to lose that, so we brought it over to the city, and that falls under our risk management program, which would help us potentially with lawsuits and claims moving down the road that they were instructed and that they were advised.
Okay. Go ahead.
Before you continue, I'm sorry, I just wanted to record Councilperson Saleh present at 10:30 a.m. So we now have 4 council members present at 10:30 a.m. Thanks.
Okay.
We have some metrics as we see in 2021. We have 212 separations. That includes resignation, retirements, early disability retirement. We have last year 202 new hires. This is only full-time. And the average age on the workforce is 35 years old.
So I think just spending a moment on this data, I think it's really important to take a look at this. Looking at the 2019 number there at separations, there was an inconsistency there in which there was a rollover of seasonal employees from this summer program. So essentially, we actually terminated like 800 youth. So that looks like an outlier there, but there wasn't a mass exodus of the city, I promise. And then, it was seasonal. And just for justification on that, if we don't terminate them at the end of each summer, there's a potential liability that we have to give them a position. If they're, they'll go to civil service and complain. So we do our diligence there. If you look at the age of new hires and you look at new hires, something that government's been struggling with, not just us, but all municipal governments throughout the country, is both retention and also recruiting new young talent. The average age in most organizations continue to grow, and that's because the new talent's not coming in. And one of the things that we've been focusing on is hitting those younger applicants through new measures, right? We actually took Councilman Saleh's advice, and we post at Rutgers for every posting now.
Good for you.
We partnered with NJCU in St. Peters, Hudson County Community, and we're really trying to recruit some younger talent and explain to them that, there are benefits to working for the city. And I think it's one of those things that catch fire, that once you have a few people working here, they see that it's a viable option and they continue to grow. So it's very encouraging that the average age has went down, and it's also encouraging that we increased our total headcount. Just to be transparent, the headcount also includes some of our newly expanded operations. So it's not necessarily that we're just padding the budget, it's also that we've expanded services, and as a result, our headcount has grown.
Let me ask this question here. Would it be some type of initiative, because I know some employees that work in the city, and they've been working in the city for a long time, they get numb, and they get discouraged on their jobs. Is there a way that HR can ask for their resumes and see what positions we have that we can transfer? Because then what will happen is they may function better in a different division. Because part of the problem is when you stuck, if you do a good job, sometimes it's hard for a director to let you go.
It's true.
And that's just truth. But that person want to still grow and thrive, and that's a problem. So is there any way that HR now can go to each department and just send a memo out to all the employees, like, if you're interested in doing some type of transfer, send me your resume. And this way here we can start comparing what we have open to probably their skill sets.
Yeah.
Because I find that's a problem because look, if you got somebody good, you really don't want to lose them.
Sure.
But in the same token, they have a right to want to learn more things. And sometimes we become selfish like that as people.
We currently have the Grow Forward program, but I think that it would be a good idea have an additional assessment so that way we can reassign or...
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about the Grow Forward program. So that was an initiative that we dealt with through the council, and basically any posting before it goes public, it goes
Right.
inside first.
Right.
And some of the growing pains of that was we had individuals that were interested, but they were nervous that if it didn't work out, would they be retaliated against by their
Correct.
by their,
Correct, all that's factors.
so that was a big factor that we had to combat.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've kind of, I don't want to say privatized, but we're not as open and transparent about the selecting of the interview process now. Now we call them down to City Hall for a meeting.
Okay.
And then we have the interview, and so if it doesn't work out, maybe it doesn't necessarily get back to the senior person. But I definitely think we could take that into consideration. And
Because
and
we
I-
might find this talent, don't
Yeah.
we? Because I know I get complaints that there are employees who would like to move, but they are afraid. They've been in these positions like for 20 years and
Sure.
30 years, and then, and some of them do their job well, to be perfectly
Sure.
honest, but they're numb. Like the job doesn't interest them no more. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
sometimes what you don't realize when you're a director, when a job doesn't interest your employee no more, they don't give you the best
give
performance
you-
that they could.
Yeah.
But you're not looking at it like that. Is that they've been in there too long, and it's time for them to transfer out. I mean, that's even with a director. That's just me personally.
Yeah.
The rule of thumb, a CEO only hold a position for 5 years and you got to go.
right.
And
Yeah.
that's a reason for our psyche. So, I think that's something personnel need to start looking into, because directors are holding some of them back.
I agree. And I think that there has to be a continuation of even the individuals that don't move.
Correct.
Buy-in, right? Something that I'll be honest, I took from Brian Platt, he was really great at, and then I continue to do, is buy-in. When we have a project and it's done to the finish line, you go and you individually thank every employee that we worked on it. And that's something that I think all directors need to learn from.
That's true.
And I'll make sure that we have a directors meeting in a few weeks. We'll talk about that.
Are the directors required to have emotional intelligence training in terms of being able to cultivate their team, cultivate a leadership and teamwork, and all those soft skills that are really actually essential to doing the job and carrying out the city's.
I think we could do better at that. I think we need to do a better job at that.
They should require emotional intelligence.
We can mandate
training
it.
for all directors.
We should mandate it. I agree. We'll make sure we'll implement that. Director Rosa will get
Council people too.
and implement.
That's true.
I think
That's true. We're
what's
not
good for
exempt.
the goose is good for the gander. Like
That's
you know
true.
what I
We're not exempt. We're not.
Absolutely, like emotional. Yeah.
With the money set aside for people to continue education through certification training, that's kind of already baked in, and I know that money is never actually exhausted at the end of the year. So I think that if it's not being done, if people are not going back to school or like using certification, maybe that's another way to allocate that funding, so it's not another new line item on the budget.
Correct.
Sure. I mean, that's something that, I agree, Councilwoman. And really the biggest driver in changes of salary or expenses in the HR's budget right now is the almost doubling of that line item.
Okay.
And we were going to work with the council before we adopt, but the mayor felt it was important to continue to encourage that and to increase the annual amount that's allowable. So we're looking at $10,000 annual stipend. That information that they are going to get for education has to be towards either a license and or a degree. We're not going to send anybody to fly a drone.
Right.
But we really want to encourage that, and I think it's important to piggyback what you guys are saying is some of our senior veteran employees that they're hesitant to go back to school or to get new training. I think we could really focus on that with those dollars.
That's good. Okay. Thank you.
All right, keep going there, Joanne.
That's it.
Just for timing.
Yeah.
Another few minutes here, and then we jump to municipal courts and then the smaller divisions. So that was the big driver. If you turn to the last sheet here, it's that the 307 line item. It's up 325,000.
Okay.
That's for those services.
Okay.
And the 101 line item that's increased is for those individuals that are now in each department as
Specialist.
specialists.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you, Joanne.
Thanks, Joanne.
No.
Who we got next?
All right, skipping around a little bit. If we could bring Wendy up,
Municipal Court.
Municipal Court. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm down to 4 divisions and 2 offices.
Right.
So most of my operations are pretty small now, with the exception of health benefits. But the second largest is Municipal Court. So I thought it'd be important to focus on that, and then we could go through there. So just looking for it here in my chart.
It'd be page 13 there, John.
13, okay. Yeah, if everyone can flip to sheet 13.
The numbers on
I know, it's every other one has the numbers. I don't know how that happened.
It's a table of all, don't have the...
Sleep deprived. Okay, so we do have our court director here, Wendy Rizzoli. Wendy's been serving the city as a director for several years now. And under her direction, we have several divisions within the offices within the division. So I'll just have Wendy kind of give us an overview, and then kind of if you could explain where we are with the scheduling, and then also, though we don't speak of it as a revenue generator, the courts do have income that come in. So maybe we could just emphasize a little on that, and then we'll go to the specifics.
You have to put the mic.
Put the mic on.
Sorry.
That's okay.
There we go. Alrighty. Municipal court is a statutory court with limited jurisdiction. Right now we have 11 judges. 6 of them are full-time, 5 part-time. We have several units within the court. We have violations, the complaint unit, data entry, court administration 1 and 2. We're still on Zoom court, with the exception of trials and in person. On average, pre-COVID, we used to hear 800 to 1,000 cases per day. Wow. So we had to change our way of doing things under the administrative office of the courts overnight, and learn how to do virtual court. With hearing cases virtually, it's created an even greater backlog with the growth of Jersey City, with the ticket issuance going up, and staff not growing. We need to consider adding another judge, adding more cases, because right now we have 193 cases in backlog. So if we increase 1 judge, because we have limited space as well, that will help us schedule more cases. The state said that they're not going to push the button anytime soon in going back to in-person hearings, so we have to expand with ways we can and be creative to get more cases in court. Right now we're doing 40 cases per judge, per full-time judge, for each court calendar. We have 2 court calendars during the day. We have one at 9 and another one at 1. One judge, Judge Cynthia Jackson, goes over to Superior Court, to CJP, and she goes there 5 days a week at 1 o'clock. So by adding a second judge, that can cover her court calendar when she's not in the building. Do you want me to run through?
We'll just keep going with the overview. So,
Okay.
I don't know if it's still the case, Wendy, but I know with the virtual court sessions, a lot of postponed cases and then deferrals on payments as well has significantly impacted our ability to collect revenue. Again, courts are not driven by revenue. I just want to clarify that for the record.
Right.
But it is a line item in our budget that when it depreciates, we do have to kind of acknowledge it.
Right, because we were used to doing, up to 1,000 cases per day. Now at maximum, we're doing 300 per day. So that's a significant difference. That's less people coming in, less foot traffic, less time payments, less people coming in to pay. So if we can add another full-time judge, part-time judge, we're still virtual. So we can find some place, we can make them work different shifts. We can add a second shift for the judges in the afternoon. We also have 2 vacant courtrooms at night to get more cases with that 193,000 cases in backlog. That's good. So right now we were scheduled out until November, December. And at no fault of ours, because there's only so many cases that you can hear. So, but a lot of complaints were coming in because people were waiting to get something resolved. So we retracted those cases back. So anything that was scheduled out in October, November, December, we pulled back in to now July, August, and September at the very latest. And if anyone calls, if you receive a call from anyone that they're complaining that they want their matter held earlier, just refer them to me and I will get them in as soon as possible.
Okay.
Thanks, Wendy. Yusuf.
Any questions?
Wait, so what's the reason that it went from 1,000 to 300?
Good question. Good question. Because it's when you're in person, it's a lot easy to get 50 to 80 people in person in courtroom at a time. When you're doing it virtually, you have to do so much upload of the documents, and it doesn't only have to go to us, it has to go to the prosecutor's office, public defender's office. There's waiting rooms involved. There's only a limited amount of time and data that can be uploaded in one court session. So as soon as they push the button to put us back in person, we'll go back to pre-COVID numbers, but they have no plans on doing that anytime soon.
And are people showing up to, are they
50%.
pre-COVID?
50%.
So is that now 50% as opposed to before? It used to be, like, was there a
90%.
change?
Yes.
Okay.
So less people are showing up now. So say if you schedule 40, 20 are showing up. So now so we're doubling our numbers now because there's only a 50% show up rate. Because they know that, what's going to happen? What's going to be, if I don't show up for that first appearance. Back pre-COVID, there would be a warrant issued. So there's also limitations from the state, and they're aware that nothing's going to happen to them if they don't. Exactly.
Different.
But we do encourage everybody to show up to their court sessions.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, Wendy's right. So last year, I lose track now, but Jersey City was actually the first in the state to go virtual. Right. With Judge Abad.
We actually created the blueprint for all of the other courts to use in the Hudson Vicinage and throughout the state. Judge Abad created tutorials on YouTube, and we assisted the AOC in the training, and he got on the committee, the IT committee for the Administrative Office of the Courts to help with the transition of the courts to the virtual setting.
So even with that, we went from 25% to 50%. So we have a 75% backlog for a year and a 50% backlog on existing year. And that's why I mentioned in caucus yesterday that even though Councilman Gilmore had asked if it's temporary, it's going to be extended for years. And the longer that the state continues to go virtual, we're going to have the same side effects.
Do you think one judge is enough? I know we have it on the agenda, but like only one additional judge, or is that like what
we're grateful for anything that we can add? I mean, one judge is a start. We actually have margin. We have 2 empty courtrooms at night, so we have 4 judges in the evening. We can actually add 2. I can put a justification together if you'd like to.
So what I briefly mentioned yesterday at the caucus is because we have to do this through ordinance, we're going to add the 1, and we're going to leave that existing judgeship open, right? So we can even add another session after we do this.
That would work.
So we're kind of getting 1.5 increase, and then we can revisit it before we adopt.
Another thing that we plan on doing is using the POA fund, which is the Parking Offense Adjudication Act, to add special sessions. So a certain amount of dollars go into this fund, and this fund grows, and we're going to apply to Judge Jablonski of Superior Court to see if we can use that fund to do special sessions. So for the part-time judges that only work Monday through Thursdays, we're going to look to have them do Fridays, and there's that special session rate that judges are entitled to, and we'll calculate to just get more cases into court.
Okay.
Great.
To alleviate the backlog.
And then if we could just, I know we're going pressed on time, but we'll just go through each division quickly, right? Office, right? So we have our judges, right? First step. Then we have our director's office, which is headed by Wendy. Her right hand is Jennifer for years now. Right. And then she has all of her clerks and assistants that provide the day-to-day operations of the court.
Yes.
Stacy Dix, who's been with us for a few years now, has been doing an excellent job with community solutions. Again, that's one that we led the state in with action plan, and Stacy's been really doing a great job, and she has 3 assistants there as well. The complaint division, if you want to just touch briefly on how we do emails now and different
Right.
things.
So the complaint unit, we had closed during the pandemic due to the state. They had us close it for 15 months. We opened it up, and during that time period, we lost a deputy court administrator. In order to work in the complaint unit, you have to be a DCA, and to determine probable cause, that's per court rule. So we're looking to fill that vacancy right now, because only a complaint can be filed by a deputy court administrator. So right now we have 1 assigned to that unit. We have several within the court, but only 1 DCA. The other are support staff. So they can take the complaint, but they can't sign it. So if Sheila Mike is out, we have to run that paperwork up to court, stop the deputy court administrator from working on the bench to then review the complaint and sign it. And that is something that we can't just hire. It has to go before a whole state panel process. So I'm on the board of the state. There's 5 members, a review process, and a broad outreach. So we're advertising for that now, for a DCA.
Okay.
Thanks. Our call center.
The call center has gotten better. We filled the vacancies that we had. We're still looking to replace 2, but there haven't been complaints like there has been in years past, which is a good thing. And I think one of the reasons is that we attributed to email. We created different email boxes, so every email we get is 1 less phone call. So we have a team in the director's office that John approved of to assist with emails, and they get anywhere between 100 to 170 emails a day that they answer.
Yeah, so council, this was something we spoke about in my closed session. One of the biggest concerns was customer service over there. And thanks to Wendy's credit, we did get a little innovative and create this online emailing system. I used it myself for a violation I got, I'm not excluded. And the email got back to me in 4 hours, so it works. And I used my personal email so they didn't know who I was. And just to show that it works. And I think people just like the idea of a little more digital. They could do it as they go. They don't have to sit on a phone call and wait. And we have been looking at not as effective or efficient as we talked about maybe originally is like, when you call AT&T and they'll call you back. Turns out there's a lot of glitches in those, and usually the entities that use those outside of government use them for customer service that is not necessarily as imposing on their life. People are losing their license, they're going to get a warrant. If you want to challenge a bill on your Wi-Fi, they don't get back to you. You call back the next day. So that doesn't necessarily work for us. But
we also created a link off of the Jersey City's website for a municipal court page. It's a go-to page. There's plea by mail forms, information. So you can also maybe not call or email the court and just find everything you're looking for right on municipal court's webpage.
I just want to ask you, what's the story now with Christine Sikora?
She was separated.
Why? She has a disability. There's a lawsuit going to be problem.
Rich. That's closed session information.
All right,
Just
okay.
deal with the budget hearing, so just stay
I'll work with the
focused.
council to get information on that through the law department.
Go ahead, Wendy.
Okay.
Next one is
So
fiscal.
fiscal, we have a great fiscal analyst, Suzanne, and a very small team to manage reconciling 4 accounts, and they're great.
Now, the reason this is separate and not through finance is because the state judiciary mandates that the courts do their own. It's not necessarily a city function, it's more of a state function, because they got a cut of all the revenue.
Right, and we also have to go under the guidelines of this state and do financial reporting on a monthly basis with the vicinage manager.
All right, let's wrap this up here. We got violations.
We're good. Violations Bureau is a mix of bail information, payments, and the call center combined. And then the next slide here is just our wages. John, do you want, we're asking for.
The increases include almost all of Wendy's staff is union, so there's a lot of union increases there, as noted. and then
And the POMCA increases.
and the POMCA increases.
So
So it's one
anyone-
of those training programs that once they go to the state, they get their increase there.
Right, so anyone who goes through principles of municipal court administration, we put them in for the $5,000 POMCA increase. We have over 40 employees that went through this training over the past
Yep.
6 years, and we have 2 employees that actually went to get certified, which is very hard, and gave them a small stipend for that as well. And we're looking to push more staff to go to get certified over the next year.
And the increase in her 312 line item is for interpreters. As the city continues to expand with our diversity, we do need those. And sometimes it's very particular if they speak a certain dialect of a language. So it doesn't reflect us to try to do that in-house. So we use this professional service, and they'll search and find somebody that's qualified for
Right,
those.
so we have a
dialects.
contract with the vendor, and we're very happy with them. Some of the judges are asking for trials in person now, so when they have a trial, we don't use the Zoom, we have the interpreters come in, and the state's allowing us to do that.
Thank you.
If I could just steal 5 more minutes.
No,
we'll
no, listen.
Okay.
We're gonna hear you all.
All right, good, okay.
All
Just
right,
making
so
sure.
this is budget hearing.
No, good, okay. I just want to make sure I didn't steal anybody else's time.
No, we
All
wanna
right,
see
thanks,
what's
Wendy.
going
You're
on.
welcome, thank you so much.
Thank you, Wendy.
All right. Next up, we will bring in IT. Bernadette wants to come up.
Thank you.
Actually, you know what, Bernadette? I'll just take it from the top and we'll go through it again. This way we're not searching for pages.
Okay.
All right, so we'll start with
Communications.
the
We have,
Office of the Administrator,
then communications.
then Communications. We have Stan here. Yep. All right, so my office is pretty tight right now. Myself, we normally have 3 support staff. We have 2 right now at a vacancy. It's working out so far, so I may ask the council to reduce that
Okay.
in our line item request. That would save the city $55,000. And then we do have our assistant BAs. We have 1 assistant BA, which is vacant, as Director Patel had moved over, and we are recruiting for that position. That position would oversee some of the legalities that we have that come out of the BA's office from contractual services and obligations, and also special projects like the parking lots, for example. That would be somebody that we'd want somebody strictly assigned to. Barca did help us with that, but continuation of that, and then also to assist Director Rosa in overseeing HR operations, because it is the size of a department reflected within our division. So that's our particular budget. Then we go on to communications. We have Stan here, our most veteran communications official of the city. Greg Corrado does oversee the function. Stan oversees the day-to-day operations of it. One thing that we're going to request here is that the council continues to budget the vacancies. I don't want to call it a mass exodus. I'll leave it to Stan, but we've had several individuals leave that were very vital to our operations. So we just want to keep that going. Stan, if you want to kind of talk about your digital footprint over the last year and kind of some of the initiatives.
Well, I accidentally just closed my phone. I had some numbers for you. Just before COVID, we did a shakeup or reorganization of communications, and one of our newer responsibilities was taking on social media. Less people are being tied to their televisions, as you know. Your phone is your way of staying in touch with whatever information sourcing you need, and what has happened is once we were given the reins of the city's 3 networks, Facebook, Instagram, and obviously Twitter. As you know, the mayor has his own separates, so we represent the city's voice, if you will. Just this past May, since the beginning of COVID, like I said, with the shakeup, we increased our Instagram following up to 66,000. That was a 100% increase. Twitter, it was up 50%, and Facebook, which starting to fade out. Instagram is larger now. That was a 43% increase. That was the most challenging to reach more people on that. So, but at the same time, speaking of mass exodus, we've lost about 6 people in communications for various different reasons. Gentleman had a baby and working, from home was an option. Another young lady, she moved to Japan. Her husband's in the military. So we've had a number of losses. I think you'll see one of those transfers went over to innovation, and there's something that came along which might be the biggest question you guys have as far as our budget is. That's a big increase because we took on the responsibilities of the city's website. That was a big one, but that person who managed it did transfer out recently, so that item will be removed from our budget, I do believe.
Yeah, so during the appropriation transfers, and Stephanie Daniels, who's in charge, was in communications. She's now with Barca and Innovation, kind of redesigning that innovation sustainability work that we're doing. I know Rich loves innovation, and so we're gonna move that line item back. So you'll see communications is relatively flat for the year on their budget. That $100,000 increase will go over to infrastructure.
Okay.
Who manages the Jersey City Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter page?
There's 2 gentlemen assigned to that. One, Patrick Byrne. You may know him. He's in the building all over time. He's one of our utility guys who has the ability to step into any role. He's one of the few people who can do that. So not only is he excellent at managing our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, he can also step in and film when we have obviously a dearth or an absence of videographers. He can do that as well. He's capable of pretty much doing anything. And Chris Anglesi, there are 2 gentlemen assigned to that. But then again, absence of bodies, these guys are entitled to lives and vacations and so forth. So we like to bring in people who are capable of being utility people, but that's rare because these are specialties. Videographers aren't necessarily writers. They're not going to necessarily be the creative types who can go out and write press releases for the mayor or write speeches for the mayor or who can write social media things. So we're holding the line.
They do a great job. That's why I just wanted to say that because I see how active they are, how responsive they are. It's, the information they post, things they post, like to celebrate the culture, diversity, and events that are happening in Jersey City. It's it really is a beautiful spectrum that they display on their social media, and very vital information as well. I was going to say, is there any way, so we are going to increase, you guys are going to increase the communications budget because?
Yeah, so the vacancies that we've lost, we're going to continue to fund. And we're leaning on Stan for the recruitment because it's such specific skill sets. He's in the process of providing an offer letter yesterday or today for one. And we're just going to keep searching for quality talent in those positions.
Something that I've raised in other meetings, I'm not quite sure where this group might fit. I know there's talk about communications and talk about innovation, but we're in need of a translation team across all materials and across a lot of our social media, and not just like a place where you send a sheet out and have it translated by Google, like people who actually can take nuance of language and understand words that may not be immediately translatable. I think it belongs in communications, but I would like you as a director, I would defer to you, but I don't think that it necessarily belongs in innovation, knowing some of the ideas that, and where if innovation is moving to infrastructure, I don't think that translation teams are appropriate there, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, with the technology available, okay, let's say anything that we film, we will put it on YouTube, and there's a built-in automatic program there, can be translated into any language that the user wants. To go beyond that, there are certain requests for things in 2 languages, and we always comply with that. Actually, there are some people we've used in the HHR to help translate things in some of the more common languages.
But in talking with the HHS,
I'm sorry.
That's a little bit more than they can also manage. So I'm just trying to see, and maybe it's not communications, maybe it's in the press office. I don't know where that would fit, but I really do think that the digital translations are fine, but like when we were doing the flyers for COVID, and like there are like medical terms and things like that that are not translatable. And maybe it's not communications, but I think that we do need to think about where a translation team should fit. And that can translate up to like 5 languages, and but not be stuck in those 5 languages. Like with the state bilingual is English and Spanish. That is helpful for us, but ultimately services the entire city. So just to have that flexibility as well.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it has to be centralized. So I think that's a really key.
Yeah.
If not communications, someplace else, but just to start thinking about where a small team can go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
true.
I appreciate that feedback, and before we adopt, I'll have an action plan for the council on that.
Before you move on, I just want to record Councilperson Solomon present at 11:05 a.m. So we have now 5 council members present at 11:05. Thanks.
Next item we have, if there's no more questions, thank you, Stan, for your presentation, is utility management. This is just straight up a one employee now. When I first started with the city, there was 6. So just a little background on this for some of the council members that may not have the background on it. A few years ago, when we got rid of the water department, we had a few employees that were vested in the pension system. And to avoid hurting them from a pension position, what we did is we allowed them to go transfer over to Suez, and then Suez reimburses us for their salaries. So as they retire or leave Suez, we no longer pay them. So we're down to 1 employee now. That individual makes $54,000 rather, and it gets about $11,000 a year overtime, and it's fully reimbursable to the city. Once he retires, this will no longer exist. Next item we have is internal audit. Jack Segura, as our CFO, kind of oversees the operation. As he continues his CFO work, it becomes increasingly difficult to manage both. So we are going to look to replace Jack with a senior auditor to kind of oversee the day-to-day operations there and allow him to continue his CFO role full-time. So with that, we do have 4 employees under that division right now: a senior auditor, a supervisor of accounts, an auditor, and a junior auditor. So we look to expand that team as we continue on. And right now what they're looking at is we just created an assessment team. And basically what we're looking at is to make sure that all the pilot payments are up to speed, and that the COs are being processed the proper way. So we're looking to do those, and as those reports become complete, we'll share them with the council. Those will be similar to an audit where we'll show corrective action, best practices, and continue from there. All right, Bernadette, spoke too soon. So information technology is last but not least, of course, been very helpful through our both COVID day-to-day growing pains of IT and technology in the city. But Bernadette is the director. She's been helping us currently with, as I mentioned before, some of our payroll and pension issues that we're looking to resolve. And the team is split up into 3 divisions with an assistant director, Vivek, who's also here, we're all familiar with, who does a great job. So Bernadette, if you could just kind of go over your org chart here and kind of how we split this up.
Sure. What we're doing is we're organizing based on the functions that people need support with. Mm-hmm. So our help desk, our level 1 support, if you will, those are the break fix, call up the 4442 number, and they'll help you with whatever it is that's going on. We try to do things remotely as much as possible. And continue that, because that obviously does help us. The city, as you know, is quite large, and just getting around from one part to another can take 30 minutes. So we do also forwardly deploy these people. So we have some people sitting here in City Hall, some people sitting at the annex, some people ready to position at DPW, so that those are the 3 main locations where we have most of the city staff, most of the support needs. So we try to make sure we always have somebody in those locations.
Could I ask you a question, Bernadette?
Yes, ma'am.
Do y'all get any complaints from the Bethune Center?
I'm sorry, say that?
From the Bethune Center. I'm just curious because it seemed like sometimes that's just a forgotten place, you know, and I go over there sometime and it's like it's difficult to get, you know, the system doesn't work well.
We do respond when they call, so and we can respond from either the annex or from DPW, you know, to support them because it's actually quite, you know, almost right in between the two. We don't have anybody there full time, but it's really just a handful of employees, so we wouldn't expect to need somebody there full time. But if they're not getting the support they need, we can certainly look into that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Our level 2 support is, if you will, you know, if there's issues beyond the regular break fix kind of things, if things require wiring, that's why we have our electrician here. If they require a higher level of support for whatever reason, that it's not a simple problem to solve, these are the folks that'll handle that second level of support. And then a group that assists with special projects. Our Tyler implementation team people that we have there, we have decided to go a different way, so those are not going to be moving forward with us.
I'll just touch base on that one real quick. So we decided to hire students, graduate students from Stevens,
Seton Hall.
Oh, Seton Hall.
Seton Hall.
Seton Hall. So we hired these individuals from Seton Hall, and it just didn't work out. The work product was okay, but it was inconsistent as per their time and software. So we did get a proposal from Tyler, the entity itself that's implementing, and what we're going to do there is dedicate it to them to allow them to finish the input. And the responsibility is on them now. You know, if the implementation of the data is wrong, they implemented the data. So just makes more sense. And it's about the same cost, so there's no additional cost to the city.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Brenda.
I guess that kind of covers the org chart, if there's no other questions.
Any questions for Bernadette?
What's the service level agreement for the Tyler implementation? Like after it's been implemented, what amount of time do we have to escalate issues to, you know, the folks that implemented it? Like, do we have a year, 2 years, like before they wash their hands?
Yeah, no, it'll be
Or it's ongoing support?
Yes.
In perpetuity?
Yes, sir. As long as we're using their application, we're going to be in a support contract with them. So there's a lot of things that, you know, as part of our configuration, they are creating the application for us, but they are going to be showing us how to make minor changes to the application. They're going to be showing us how to do things ourselves so that we can customize it, you know, minorly. But if we require significant additional resources, then we would probably have to reach back out to them and have them do something.
Yeah, the way we implement it is phases. So we want to continue to the next phase to make sure that all the data is tested and that it's working efficiently. We wouldn't compound the problem, right? It would just be phase 1, phase 2. We want to get at phase 1 until we get to phase 2, and we take legal action if there was any requirement.
It is fundamentally changing the structure of how HEDC works. They really are, and it's, you know, a lot of conversation because change is really difficult, but we are restructuring how they work together instead of the silos that they've been in before, where a developer would have to take something from zoning and then take it over to planning and then go from planning and go over, you know, to finally to construction. All of these things are going to be into the system, and they're all going to be, if you will, steps in a bigger process that everybody will have a chance to see. It'll really improve the communications. It'll really improve the way they function together, and they won't miss things that maybe might have gotten lost in the cracks before. Those things won't be, because they're going to be on somebody's radar, in their box, ready to go. You know, this is what you have to work on next. This is the deadline that's coming up for this thing. It's actually a very good system.
Are we looking at other departments and areas in the city that are that would necessitate, you know, transformation or bring them into the digital age? Like, let's say the parking enforcement, if they were able to digitize the ability to get and do the permits, and then the automatic plate readers. Like, I think there was an attempt to do that, but it failed.
Yes.
Okay.
because the system wasn't able to read with the plate readers?
So we're doing that piecemeal, right? The first step with parking was to just get online payment available, which we did a few years ago. We enacted that. The license plate readers is definitely an issue that we have to resolve. When we meet with Director Patel later this week, you'll see she has some ideas for traffic planning and scheduling, specific team that focuses on that. And what they do is they run models to see how the traffic would evolve around certain closures. I think that's a good start. And then on the IT side, I think City Hall implementation of Wi-Fi will be a good initiative that we can unleash throughout the city and all the buildings if it works. And that's a local minority entity as well, so it'd give them additional ample opportunity if they do a good job. So I think we are looking at it holistically, but just segment by segment.
And last question, have we looked at public Wi-Fi for everybody? Like some municipalities have it for free, like I think, is it Philadelphia? Like they just have public Wi-Fi accessible everywhere. I know we have the hotspots, but are we looking to expand that?
It becomes a very costly endeavor if we were to do this. And for the most part, I know that a lot of organizations did that early on, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And most of them that did have rolled back and gotten out of that business because it is effectively competing with private industry. Government is competing with private industry when you do that. It's not that we can't do it, but those are the kinds of factors that come into play. And so our agreements, our language, we need to be careful of, what kind of public access we provide because we would be cutting into somebody else.
And some of our case studies showed that when we were looking to do this we're going to start with City Hall Park, so to speak, out front, and then kind of implement it. I think, I don't want to mention any entities, but some of the entities were willing to give it to us for free implementation, right? And then what they did in other cities as we were looking at the free implementation is those cities were 2-3 years down the road, and then they were getting hit with millions of dollars in bills saying, oh, we said we'd install it. We didn't say we'd, so in order to not compete with themselves, they were essentially giving us the hardware, guaranteeing future revenue. So it's something we can look into.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a very fine line to walk. It's kind of like the body cameras too. So you kind of think they'll give you those body cams, but boy, the cost to maintain those files and storage. Yeah, exactly.
Director, before you continue, I just want to record Councilperson Gilmore present at 11:15 a.m. So we now have 6 council members at 11:15. Thanks.
Yeah, we have, and then we just have,
two more,
we have
right?
3 offices. We have public defender, diversity and inclusion, and then I'll represent abatement and compliance.
John, can I
Sure.
Yes, sorry.
You may have covered this, and I apologize if I missed it. I wanted to ask on the 314 contractual services, it increased by 456,000, and the justification comments.
Councilman, I just need you on the mic. Sorry.
Yeah.
The 314 contractual services increased 456,000, and the justification comments say unicorn plus 5% inflation. You may have covered that, but I apologize if I missed it. Could you just say what that was?
So Unicorn is the name of the new HR payroll system that we're implementing. And so that's the ongoing annual cost, and that represents a significant piece of that, and then just a little inflationary adjustment on all the other contracts.
And did we have a system before that we're saving now because we're not using, or?
Yeah, so it's one solution, right? We're still in the integration process, right. So we'll no longer require the expanded services on one solution, and the cost would go over to Unicorn. Unicorn is, as I mentioned before, think ADP style, kind of soup to nuts, everything online, digital. We will still keep a team inside to make sure that record keeping's done, but all the processing will be done by a third party.
Got it. And with this system, just for example, are we accessing our W-2s online now, going forward, and things like that? Okay.
Everything will be digital. Yep.
Okay.
And we're slated for a September hard start.
Got it. Okay. Thanks.
We'll do a few test runs. We've already done it with library, pension, and something else, but it's been successful, so we're just going to continue there.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
public defender should be a quick one.
Okay.
We have our Chief Public Defender here, Andy
Andy.
Abrams. No, you're good. So I believe it's Andy, and then we have our contracted public defenders, and I believe one full-time support staff. Is that correct? Okay. 2 full-time support staff, yeah. And if, Andy, you just want to give a brief overview of...
When it's green.
Push green.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. If you can't tell, this is my first one of these. So. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Sorry. Pleasure to see all of the council members. I wanted to first thank you. I've been your chief public defender for the past 20 years. It has been a privilege and an honor to serve in that capacity. We help a lot of people in the city. We're sort of an interesting office because we're not a revenue generating office.
Right.
In fact, the council took an unprecedented step a few years back on a recommendation when we were collecting money from indigent people and realized we would see people come in with some sort of money order for $2.
Yeah.
And they would come back month after month, and it would take years to pay off the $150 application fee, because $150 to a person, as a lot of communities were charging, is an enormous amount of money when you don't have any money.
Right.
So we had said to the city council, why don't we go ahead and honor the spirit of the constitutional idea that anyone who's indigent is entitled to representation, not entitled for $150. And you all were terrific in waiving that. At the same time that a lot of local towns and cities raised their public defender fees. And so the community recognizes that. We also staff 18 public defender attorneys, and over the years I've been there, we've really changed the perception. People will see public defenders on TV and in the movies and think they're getting the lesser product, or you get what you pay for. My public defender attorneys are outstanding. If I ever had a problem, I would use any or all of them to represent me or family members. They're committed, they're excellent, and they work on a per diem basis. That model stays in place year to year. We function as liaisons between the judges and the indigent clients. I will tell you that our caseload has probably quadrupled following the pandemic. Not entirely surprising, because when you consider the convergence of the perfect storm of factors, a lot of people lost jobs, don't have the income. Crime didn't stop, or charges didn't stop, so people were continuing to have to apply for and needed counsel, or don't have the funds to hire private attorneys now. So we have, thankfully, again, everybody's been praising Bernadette, but when we went to a virtual setting, this was unprecedented in Office of Public Defenders also. I can tell you from a perspective of someone who visits every municipal court in the state of New Jersey in my private practice, there is no better functioning public defender office in the state in terms of the ability to access information and to get it to our attorneys and to service a huge amount of clients. That's also true, and if I could just add a quick footnote, because I know we're rushed. The court itself, and I'm sure you're all aware of this, we have the most diverse court and the most dedicated municipal court. And I'm going to throw a little bit of praise also at Wendy. We're the only court that I know of that has a domestic violence court.
Yeah.
The way that, the next pandemic, the next wave is mental health, is domestic violence, are things that have grown out of what we've now been saddled with for the last 2 years. And as those caseloads have increased, we have been there to represent those people, not to just punish them or prosecute them, but to defend them and to counsel them and to try to put them in a better place, which as a whole helps the community heal. And when I talk about Judge Jackson's community court, which has been spectacular, different from most. Some courts have one version of this. No court has a community court, a court designed for domestic violence, which has increased to multiple days now. A mental health court, which is unlike any in the state that I've been to. It works at a functioning level. of superior court intervention where they have programs like drug courts, but we are very proud, and each of our judges has become so specialized. And again, because we got the jump on things so quickly in converting everything. When I want to tell you, 2 years ago, my office was paper-driven only. There was nothing on computers. You know, we had them for the calendar events. And with the help of all the folks here, we converted everything over, brought in some interns free to help transfer everything so that we could manage that wave when it came. And it's full on now. It's a tsunami of cases, but you should be very proud substantively of what you all have done in supporting the courts because they're doing a remarkable job, really caseload-wise and diversity-wise, dealing with the problems in the communities. It's unlike any other court in the state. So two individuals who work for us full-time. One is the supervisor, and the other, I don't know what title they give it. Please excuse me. As I said, I'm new at this, but she handles a lot of the day-to-day. There's a tremendous amount of work. If you picture a law firm with over 1,000 active cases and 2 support staff members, they manage everything from original intake when it's sent over to the courts to serving the client's interests, creating files, getting all discovery, putting the attorneys in a position where we can step in and we can defend those cases. And while it is true that the AOC and the courts are now very pleased with the construct of virtual court, and I don't anticipate ever going away from the virtual court, so we have kept up with that, with the understanding that we're always going to be functioning virtually. I mean, this morning I was in 3 different courts at the same time, so there's a benefit to that. It is more difficult, as the director told you, to get things done the way you can do it in person. So while there has been, you know, I think things are now starting to even out, there is a backlog. They are chipping away at it diligently, and with each case that we resolve, there's 3 more coming down the pike. But because we have a good number of attorneys, and my attorneys are always instructed that if you don't qualify for the public defender, counsel, be a friend of the court, do whatever we can to help move the caseload so that we can try to decrease that backlog as much as possible. Considering the amount of cases that come through Jersey City and the backlog of what should have been 2 years, I'm proud to say I think they've maintained it incredibly well. It's a work in progress, but my office is there to help the courts in any way they can. We're not a revenue-generating entity, but I think we're an important office in the courts because everybody at one point or another has a contact with the court, and we try top-down to treat everybody who comes in, be it virtually or in person, and there are more in-person dates each day with the greatest respect so that when they leave the courts, they don't see us as some sort of cheaply driven entity.
Yeah. And then the increase.
Excuse me, Andy.
Sorry, yep. And then just the salary and wage increase is both for the unions and then that one full-time employee we did give an increase to. She's been with the city for over 15 years, and Andy will go on for 15 minutes on how great she is. So I'll vouch for him.
Yeah, I was just gonna say if I got paid by the word, I would have retired a long time ago. I apologize again. I don't get to.
No problem. No problem. No, we appreciate it because not often do the defender comes.
Yeah.
That's why I was letting you explain exactly what you do because not often the public
City Hall's
defender
been
comes.
great, but you've been so supportive, and I want to thank all of you.
And when we do our org chart meetings now, we include public defender as well. So
we appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any
Okay.
questions or no?
all right.
How many cases do you guys?
We got 2 more because we got another group out here. We got to take a break, so let's finish these 2.
How many cases do you guys handle annually?
Our number now exceeds, we have 1,000 active cases right now. And as I said, each day, if we resolve 2, there's 5 more coming. So it's exponential in its growth. At some point, it will level off, but we're equipped to handle as many cases per day as we need to. 6 functioning courts, at least 10 cases in each court morning, and then again in the afternoon. So it's a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Floyd?
Yeah.
We have,
This is the first time public defender came to us. I'm telling you.
Hopefully not the last.
Well,
Not
we
while
need to
I'm
see
here.
everybody. We need to see how this city runs, to be honest.
It's true.
We appreciate it.
Yep. So wrapping up our last two offices, we have diversity and inclusion, and then abatement compliance. So diversity and inclusion is currently undergoing a rejuvenation, I'd like to say. Director Hendon had left the city back in March, or April rather. But as we discussed in my session earlier in the year, we really need to kick up and revamp this office.
Yeah.
Floyd Jeter has been a member of the administration for a few years now, and he thought he was ready to step up. He's been working in this field for a while. He has advanced education, and we felt that he'd be the best at promoting this, both from a larger perspective and also knowing the community well and engaging the community on a smaller basis. So what we've been really doing here is not only promoting Floyd, but also assisting him and encouraging him on some of the initiatives he's doing. So the first thing he did was he took a look at, and I'll let him speak on it, but just a little overview. He took a look at some of the audit findings that came through diversity and inclusion on best practices that Rutgers University actually provided us. And what we found there is that the majority of the best practices weren't implemented with the prior director. And he's right now building a program and a timetable on how to implement those. And then in addition to that, we meet quarterly, my office, and we're trying to get a little bit more innovative, Rich, on how to reach out to the communities, right? Diversity and inclusion used to hold their own programming, and that's great, but standalone sometimes doesn't always work. So we're going to have representatives at each flag raising with information in multiple languages. When we do bid specs, we're going to do an open invite through the diversity inclusion vendor software. We've been working with directors like Bernadette and just specifically looking at, so to speak, of set-asides on how to increase those programming. And more importantly, he's been working with purchasing to make sure that before anything gets on the council meeting, that it's been fully vetted through diversity and inclusion, and making sure that we do tap that list prior to any opportunities. So Floyd, if you just want to talk a little bit about what your vision is and kind of where you want to go with diversity and inclusion, and then if there's any questions.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Right now, the set aside has been the big piece for everyone, but it's not really set aside because legally talking to the lawyers is what we have to do is try to stand at the bid threshold, and we could move more product or more bids that way. If we stand at that threshold, we can get more minorities, more small businesses, business to do business with the city. And we're revamping the doing business with Jersey City called to Jersey City wants to do business with you. So it's a language, it's an idea, it's something that we're going to encompass to make it look better so we're more community driven, engaged. We're meeting with community colleges and JCU. We're partnering with them to do events so that this way we're bridging the gap between community organizations, flag raising, ribbon cuttings. We're everywhere because we need to be everywhere because small businesses are cutting these ribbons and they need to know that there's a place that they could potentially do business with the city of Jersey City. So making ourselves known is one way. Making sure that we're well-staffed, that we're able to equip everybody with the information. And we also started an Instagram page, which we didn't have. So we got 33 followers. We're doing good. We're moving ahead. But it's the idea so it's the idea we're trying to do more and actually give more validity to the Office of Diversity and Inclusion because we touch everywhere. So if we're not in place, we need to be in place. That's what we're trying to do.
Is there a system in place for us to know the number of set-asides we give in a year?
In actuality, it's not set-asides. We have the numbers that we have. I think I recently gave them to you guys. Is that we've done a percentage of like 2018, 2019 is like a 12% increase with minority vendors because set-aside. Jersey City has a set-aside, but legally the The state doesn't. And what will happen is we'll get sued later on if we just said set aside.
Well, I want to know what we did with the ordinance then. That's my concern, because I remember we passed the ordinance to do set-asides based on women and minority, based on veterans, based on LGBTQ. We did that. We wrote an ordinance, and they get a certain percentage based on that ordinance. So now the law department, if we doing something wrong, they need to be here. And the reason why I'm saying that, because we passed it. Now, I understand what you're saying, but I know what we voted on, and I know what we passed. So now, if you telling me that's illegal, then where's the law department? Because we wrote it and we passed it. So our concern is, as a council, is to know how many we do in a year. How many are we giving to women and minority? How many are we giving to veterans? How many are we giving to disabled? Because they was in there too. How many are we giving? So that is an ordinance that we have on the books.
And the way it's framed, it's still set aside, but it's numbers.
It's like a benchmark. Is it a benchmark?
It's more of a benchmark, because if you're increasing that minority vending, the women vending, the LGBT, the disabled, you're getting the mark. It's the set aside that is the confusing piece.
All I need to know is how many we give in a year to those groups, because we specifically put those groups in a category. What good is it if we don't know the number? That's an ordinance. Pull the ordinance and let's see what we're going to do. Now, if it is wrong, then we need the law department to correct us, because every ordinance that we do, they are supposed to investigate and make sure it is upheld by the law. So now, if you telling me we're not, and there's something wrong with that, we need to have a meeting with the law department, because we need to know the numbers. We did it specifically for that group. I'm telling you.
And I'm not telling you.
No. We just need to know the numbers. I just need to know how many are we giving to LGBTQ. I just need to know how many we giving to women, because there was a certain category and a certain percentage for each of those groups.
That's right. So what I think we have to do is we have to create a model showing what the ordinance requested and what's the actual results.
Correct.
And I think that the conversation over the term benchmarking, or we'll have to have legal clarify that.
We need to.
But aside from that, I think that we could take a shot at looking at what the ordinance sets aside, or benchmarks, whatever you want to call it, and then what was actually implemented through contracts. And I think we can get to that goal without worrying about the ordinance, because regardless of the ordinance, if the department directors didn't do their responsibility in the set-asides, it doesn't matter if it's legal or not, it was a mandate.
Correct. So that's what you need to do too, is partner with these directors to see exactly how many vendors do they have that are minority that falls under that category. And I'm quite sure purchasing would have to have something to do with this also. It's everybody connecting the dots to make this work.
And not to. We have put in place a goods and services to give to all the fiscal departments. So therefore, all the contract that are under 44,000, we can actually call minority vendors to put that money to the side, so to speak, for them alone. So we are making a mark. It's just that title is really a little fuzzy. But the money is going towards these businesses, because I'm working with Raquel, and the thing that most of it is the end users are not going to the list that we're providing. So we got to get more on tune. It's more of an internal thing more than external. So once we get that in place, we'll be great.
Councilwoman. So we're going to work on that. We'll get a timeline, and when he can get me that report to furnish
I would
to
appreciate
the
it, because I know we voted on it, and that's all we concerned about right now, because I know we got a lot of pushback and a lot of heat from the community concerning that. I remember we went through the Croson study. I was here. We've been through all of that. And out of that became the Inclusionary Advisory Board. Out of that, we did another survey. Out of that, we did the set-aside. So at this point, we need to see exactly how many people or how many companies or vendors we are reaching under those categories, because those categories was put in there based on the recommendation of that survey. That's all we need to know.
I wanted to ask, is your purview limited to vendors, or are you sitting at like the weekly administration
don't worry.
meetings? Are you like working with HR to make sure that there's D&I practices, D&I hires, like people that will basically increase diversity throughout the city? Like, what is your purview limited to? Is it limited in any capacity, or are you at these meetings? Like, what's
Well, personally, I'm reaching out to HR. We're starting the ERG group, which gives us understanding of the demographics that we service, so that we know that diversity and inclusion is touching everywhere. We're working with purchasing, and there goes this goods and services piece that's going to touch all departments. So we'll touch and have a conversation with everybody at a particular time, and you guys will get a report soon as I get the numbers together, because that's what I'm working on. Because the BA explicitly wanted me to work on that. That I know that's been a big picture, so that's what I'm definitely going to give you guys shortly, with numbers, graphs, and the whole whistles and bells.
But I think I agree. I think that we could assign somebody from the team specifically to work with HR on diversity hiring, and even when we look at part-time contractual, aside from actual contractual obligations, if we have summer employment, et cetera.
Just because it's such an important, department for the city, for the city and its diversity to be reflected in its government and the people that carry out the day-to-day tasks, I think is critical.
How many, for some reason, I guess I don't, how many staff is in this division?
Right now, we have 5.
So it's 5?
Including myself, I'm included in that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have a director and then 4 case managers, so to speak. Do you want to speak on their roles quickly?
Yes.
So
there is the office manager. There's,
You don't have it in there. You don't have it in there. So
Oh, that's what I was looking.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, with the office manager, there's also a program specialist, 2. I have 2 of those, and I'll have a part-timer, and that's it, and myself.
Okay. All right. Mary, anything?
Just a quick question I see under dues and subscriptions and the various chamber organizations. I don't see the local Hudson County Chamber. I know that there are a lot of women that participate in that, and they do have women's events. These women might not yet be captured in the African American Chamber or the Hispanic Chamber. There's also the local PhilAm, the Filipino Chamber of Commerce. So you may want to consider reaching out to them as well.
And the reason why,
if you haven't done so already, I know that these were done a couple months ago. But
yes, these were done, and a lot of them. These more so have a charge. A lot of other ones don't have a charge to it. So to specify the request, I just put the ones that actually ask for money.
I'm pretty sure the Hudson Chamber has.
I'm quite sure.
Yes.
Just to keep tabs on
Not a
women
problem.
coming into that, and sometimes they do spread out into these other organizations. But if some of these are, if we want to capture local first, that's the best place to do it, and then build out to state. So.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. Last one.
Floyd, and then Council President, the last one is Abatement and Compliance. I'll be representing that one.
Okay.
Gina Oblong has COVID, so
She's out, yeah, okay.
trying to just get through that. So with that being said, I'm just pulling up my notes here. So Gina has been our director for 5 years now, and just going through her staff. Sorry here. So she does currently have 6 employees. It's herself as the director, and then we have 3 inspectors, support staff, and an analyst. So what they basically do is go day to day, mostly driven through inspections. Over the course of the last year and a half, she's violated over 7 pilot agreements that were not in compliance with diversity hiring and compliant to local restrictions. The process for that is that we do freeze the project at that time, and we do a 30-day negotiation with the entity to make sure that there is compliance, because what ultimately happens there is if you violate it, we bring it to council and we cancel the pilot. We've learned that that doesn't necessarily mean that those local hires will continue to be employed. So what we try to do is correct it first. And the largest one that we were dealing with recently is was the former medical center up the hill, the Beacon, and in that settlement, we had over $400,000 in restitution to local employees that were being underpaid. So she does a diligent job. What they do is it's random inspection, spot inspection, so there's no heads up. They can't prepare to reconcile anything that was incorrect, and they do have to do quarterly reports to Gina, which then go to the auditor for future inspection. So the cost driver here you'll see it's just the mileage, which is the last line item. They went down a vehicle, so instead of offering a vehicle, we offer the mileage reimbursement, and her continuing operating costs are relatively small. And this is an office within my office, so it's not necessarily a recognized division, but that this and diversity and inclusion fall under that category.
Okay. Any questions?
Sure.
Who's responsible for the directors' salaries?
So the department directors is done by ordinance. And then the division directors and the office directors are done through the department and then with the administration.
Well, what I'm trying to figure out is who's responsible to say each director gets to the maximum threshold. What does the assessment look like? What are the criteria? And how is that all sorted?
So it's kind of calculated into a range. And then the range is revisited annually through a annual review. So I review department directors, and the department directors review their division directors. Yeah, I think there's some cloud around how we organize the city. So the city's organized through 9 departments and then several divisions, and then under those divisions fall certain offices. So what happens sometimes is the offices, which are smaller than the department divisions, tend to feel that they are divisions, and it becomes a cloudy area where they think they're entitled to division salary when they're actually an office of the underneath the department.
Underneath the department, yeah.
Oh, but no.
What we try to do is I didn't mean to cut you off, Councilman. What we try to do is we try to evaluate how large the operation is and what the impact is, and whether it's deemed a division or an office.
No, I think I'm asking the question wrong. I'm trying to figure out the ordinance for the salary for department directors specifically, right? The maximum threshold was 175.
Correct.
Who determines who get the 175? What is the system for criterias, and how does that process look? Specifically, department directors.
So it's an administrative decision that's done through an annual review with myself and HR. We review each director, and then it's based on performance, goals, and objectives, and then determine that if there's a need to increase or not.
So do we have like an assessment sheet that you like go?
I mean, I just have to work with. Yeah, I can give you a copy of it. I don't know if we can give you the completed ones if it's an HR thing, but I'll find out.
Give a blank
one.
I'll give you a blank one. Yeah. So essentially, what it is, it's about 4 or 5 pages of information that the director fills out, and then we go through each component and what are the inconsistencies, what are the consistencies, feedback from the council, from the mayor, from the public, and to kind of find out where the inconsistencies are. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions?
And that's usually done every September, not for any other reason, but that's when they started. So we just go annually on those.
Is that like a performance review or?
Yeah,
Yes.
performance
basically?
review. A little specific to each individual director. The performance goals of public safety are different than the performance goals of recreation.
One time we didn't have that.
Correct. That's
I'm
new.
telling you.
That's
That's
a
new.
John Metro initiative.
Right. One
That's
time
what I was
we
about
didn't.
to say. I would.
At one time we didn't, because I know when I came into the city, there was a lot of things that was not implemented at the time. But as we continue to do the budget hearing, and there were certain concerns from the council, they start implementing certain things. So even when it came to the directors getting evaluated, that was just implemented maybe about a year, 2 years ago. You know, so that's how that determines, you know, how they get an increase. But I know it's confusing because there's division directors thinking that they're the director, but they're not.
Correct.
You know, and that's where it gets kind of confused.
That's ultimately
Because the director really is the one that salary is above, but then the division director think that they're director, and so it can get kind of confusing, but there's a director of the departments, because we got 9 departments, and then we got little umbrellas underneath. That's the way I look at it.
And sometimes there's just a little confusion because, not for any other reason, but the rank and file staff call their manager director.
Correct.
So sometimes, you know,
call them all director. It's like director.
Right.
yeah. So
it gets confusing.
So it gets confusing. They say, "Well, everyone calls me a director. I'm a director," but they
Correct.
really have to go back to the organization of each department.
Right. So we finish.
Ultimately, like the administration will put up an ordinance, and then it's reviewed by the council to determine whether or not, you know, we want to shift the department and make it a division, or make a division a department. Like we just did that.
And we're looking at that rate,
structure
and we're going to look at that right now. The next meeting in August, Director Flanagan's going to bring reason why a function should move from an office to a division, and I think she touched on it in the council. Council budget hearing, but she'll have to provide why it's necessitated and why it shouldn't just continue to be an office.
But before we close out, I just want y'all to remember Robert Burns. He has some health issues, so let's just remember Robert Burns in our prayers, because, you know, we know he's an anchor, always been an anchor for the city. And I do want to say this, though, in his behalf. I know when I started as a council person in 2013, I sat next to Robert, and Robert said, "Joyce, this is where you learn." He told me you learn in the caucus and you also learn in the budget hearing. So that's why when I'm in a budget hearing, I'm quite aware of the time. Don't think I'm not. But I know I have new council people here, not just new, but some old ones here, that sometimes you just got to hear the process again. And it's okay to hear the process again. We are here to do a budget hearing. As long as I check my watch, we all here at least 8 hours.
Right.
All right. So let's don't get bent out of shape because we like 15 minutes over or a half hour over. We are here for this. This is the Jersey City budget hearing, and we will be here until we get this right. All right, so let's just be conscious of that. And at this point, you can close us out, and we can do a break, and then the next group will come in. So I'm conscious of the time, but I know these questions are important, and I'm not trying to rush through them.
Finance.
We
Thank
just
you,
need
Madam
answers.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 11:55 a.m. was made by Councilperson Saleh. May I have a second? Second by Councilperson Solomon. On the motion to adjourn at 11:55 a.m., all council members present by acclamation, please say aye. Thank you very much. We are out of here at 11:55 a.m. Thank you so much, everyone. Remember, teamwork makes the dream work. And again, remembering Robert Byrne, he was my mentor. So let's keep. No. Just keep him in your prayers.
Yeah,
Keep him in your prayers. Thank you.
Yeah, he's having a